I want to come back to the word consciousness, because I've heard you say it now a number of times, and in the reference to the word truth, and in reference to the word reality. And that's that consciousness exists outside of time and outside of space. And I find a lot of people sort of pay lip service to that, and they go, of course, yeah, consciousness is outside of time and space. But I'd like to take a minute here before we get into the depths of our conversation and talk about what does that really mean? If something is outside of time, what are we really saying? Mm-hmm. How does motion exist without time?
Yeah.
How does thought exist outside of time? Now I'm not trying to explain these things now, but I'd like to get onto the table so that our audience understands as we're coming along that we aren't goofing around here. When we say that consciousness is outside of time and space, we mean that consciousness is outside of time and space, and that is an absolute reality.
Yeah, and
okay?
we will even go one step further, which is to say that it actually precludes their being, starting from consciousness, which human thinking never does not start from pure consciousness, because human thinking thinks itself is real, and it's a time process, so naturally it's already, the minute there's a thought, there's time. But pure awareness, as it is presently being, and it's the one that's being aware here, by the way, you know, can't get around that, you can't escape it, it's what truly is. It is not a process that's in time, it is not changing, and so there you have it. There's no choice about it.
In your book, you talk about how we define now as being a sliver that exists between past and future. Is that true?
No.
Right.
Not. That's what you could call the human now, the temporal now. Sometimes in philosophy, I think it's called presentism, the study of that, and it's literally referring to that micro instant, or whatever you want to call it, in this, the present moment, so to speak, in this flow, or what seems to be a flow from past to future, or future as the future becomes past, whichever direction you want to go. And what we're doing today, and throughout these conversations we'll be having, is turning the premise around again, which is not starting with what seems to be the mind or mental activity, but starting or looking out from or looking out as consciousness itself, which is the one, again, being present and conscious here right now, and starting there as that. And there has to be a starting there to be consistent with that which is genuinely present and functioning, because time activity is, mind activity, excuse me, all of our thinking is inseparable, is one with a time flow. As think of the thoughts that are being expressed with my words right now as we're talking. The things I said 10 seconds ago are gone. It's this flow that's constantly moving. It's not permanent, as we were saying. It's not changeless. It's not timeless. So we're not going to start from the level of mind or thinking or what is experienced by the senses, but start from pure consciousness, or that isness. And when starting as that, and again, this is not complicated, it's because here it is. Consciousness cannot be taken out of present tense. Try.
Right.
I would invite anybody to try and make awareness not be aware now. It's good to try, because you see how futile, how impossible it is to make it not be present. Try to move it 3 days from now into the future. You're not touching awareness. Same thing, try to back it up to 3 days ago. You can't do it. What's happening there is that thought is projecting an image, some kind of mental image of what it thinks is 3 days ago or 3 days in the future, and that is not awareness. Awareness is a state of presentness, and time seems to be, or past and future, seems to be never present. It's either a past that is not, the past literally is what is not present anymore, and what we call the future is that which is not present yet. Past and future, even if you're going a nanosecond into time, either direction, that is not the present. They are not the same thing. And when you start with the present, as consciousness, which, again, effortlessly is the one being present here, that's all you have. That's all that is isness. And to try to say there's something else is not being honest with what is life, the way life is already functioning. And as we were saying earlier too, by the way, this presentness is life itself. That is where life is. Not where in the sense of, location, but presentness is what life is, because a second into the past is not alive. A second into the future is not alive. Now is when life is alive.
What happens when we experience the past?
It's a mental image. That's all. It's a thought projection.
Right.
That's all there is to there.
And that thought projection we would commonly refer to as memory.
Memory. Yeah.
Right. So in order for there to be memory, it arises in the present.
Yes.
It is a concept then.
Totally.
Right.
Totally.
So there is no evidence
it.
outside of your memory that there is anything other than the present. There is no past other than a thought that appears telling you that there was one.
Exactly. Getting back to the notion of now being a moment between, let's really look at that future a little bit more, as we were saying earlier. Whatever thinking would try is off there in ahead, if you will, in time, is just a thought. It's just mental speculation going on now, as you just said. And yet, the interesting thing is, the moment there is that thought of the so-called future, by the way, it's past.
Right.
It's already happened as the very thing the most it's ever going to be, and it's past. So, truly, literally, from the standpoint, this, if you will, new perspective, is it new to the present itself or consciousness itself? No, but it seems to be a new way maybe of looking at things. From the standpoint of the present, even what human ignorance would say is a future, no such thing. Even that is a past. So you don't have past and future that consciousness can be between. So that whole model, time to discard that one.
Right. Right. So then coming back, maybe the simple conclusion is that the word the now is synonymous in actuality with consciousness.
Yeah, identical.
Right.
Identical. Again, as we were saying earlier, just quickly, in one of the chapters a little later in the book, it asks, what is it that makes now be now? Do you ever ask yourself, why is it always now? Where the heck does it come from? Who makes it that way? Not a who, but, why is that? Mm-hmm. And when you look at it from the standpoint of awareness, it becomes clear, well, now is what awareness or consciousness literally is. Because nothing exists, as we'll talk about a little later, nothing exists. There is none of existence, what we call our entire existence, that exists separate or outside of consciousness. Consciousness has no boundaries. It's boundless. It is not bound by space. It's not surrounded by space even, what we call space. Mm-hmm. So consciousness is it. It's where all existing goes on. And it is present tense. That's it. So it's literally what we call the present itself. We think it's, that there's this present that we are conscious of. No, consciousness is not conscious of the present. Consciousness is the present. Right. Awareness is the present.
So the only thing that we can say about these concepts that we call past and future is that they're not.
Yeah, exactly.